Hello and welcome. I am Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South. All right then, let's get started. On the show this week, a deep dive into the Modi-Putin summit in New Delhi and how India and Russia are rewriting global trade. Civil war in Sudan worsens, rebels capture an oil-rich city in the country's south, deal a blow to the army just a month after they seize the strategic city of El Fasher in neighboring Darfur province. And a new search for the wreckage of the ill-fated Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 is set to resume 11 years after it vanished without a trace, killing everybody on board. Will the biggest aviation mystery finally be solved? All that and much more coming up on Voice of the Global South. Now, while the West lectures New Delhi and Moscow on partnerships, the two capitals just signed the future in ink and steel. In New Delhi, President Putin and Prime Minister Modi did not just exchange pleasantries, they accelerated three strategic trade corridors that together shave more than 16,000 kilometers and up to 40 days off the journey between Indian factories and Russian resources. Our cover story decodes the three lifelines that have just been turbocharged: the International North-South Transport Corridor, the Chennai-Vladivostok Maritime Corridor, and the Northern Sea Route. Let's begin with the oldest and now the fastest moving connectivity project, the International North-South Transport Corridor. Imagine a 7,200 kilometer superhighway that links Mumbai or Nhava Sheva in India to St. Petersburg in Russia in just 23 to 25 days, almost half the time it takes through the Suez and the Red Sea today. The route is elegantly simple. Indian ships dock at Iran's Bandar Abbas, or if the US plays ball, the India-built Chabahar port. Cargo moves by rail or road through Iran, crosses the Caspian into Azerbaijan, rolls straight into Russia with connections to Armenia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and even Belarus. 13 countries have signed on. The missing rail link between Rasht and Astara in Iran is now financed and under construction. Since March 2025, New Delhi has been using the corridor to send cargo from the Mundra port in Gujarat to Central Asia via Iran's Bandar Abbas port. A scholar at the New Delhi-based Observer Research Foundation says the corridor can be a game changer. In 2025, India entered into a strategic partnership with Central Asian countries, focusing on rare earths and critical minerals to minimize Chinese dominance over rare earth supplies. The corridor can boost New Delhi's trade diversification, secure mineral supplies, and help counterbalance China's influence in Eurasia. Just last month, that is November 2025, the first full Eastern Arm cargo reached Central Asia via this corridor in record time. On 8th November, a cargo train originating north of Moscow reached Iran carrying containers through Central Asia. The 900-kilometer journey to the apron dry port in Tehran took 12 days, crossing Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan before entering Iran. On 5th December in New Delhi, Putin and Modi directed their teams to make the corridor stable and efficient. Their exact words in the joint statement. It read, and I quote, The two sides agreed to deepen cooperation in building stable and efficient transport corridors with the focus on expanding logistics links for improving connectivity and enhancing infrastructure capacity to support the International North-South Transport Corridor, the Chennai-Vladivostok Maritime Corridor, and the Northern Sea Route. The joint statement went on to say, and again I quote, "Both sides underscore the importance of holding regular bilateral consultations on Arctic-related issues and welcome the progress made in multifaceted bilateral cooperation on the Northern Sea Route."
INSTC या तो फिर नॉर्दर्न सी रूट यानी चेन्नई व्लादिवोस्टोक कॉरिडोर, इन पर हम आगे बढ़ने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। जल्द ही इस दिशा में प्रगति होगी। इससे ट्रांजिट टाइम घटेगा, कॉस्ट कम होगी और बिजनेस के लिए नए मार्केट्स खुलेंगे।
Now, for his part, President Putin said that the International North-South Transport Corridor and the Northern Sea Route would offer major opportunities for bilateral trade. Why the hurry, you might wonder? Because the rival is watching. And here I mean the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor. This corridor was announced with much fanfare on the margins of the 2023 G20 summit in New Delhi. It promises to link India to Europe via the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, Greece, and Italy. But 2 years on, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor remains a PowerPoint dream. The Gaza war and the Houthi attacks on ships in the Red Sea have frozen progress on this connectivity project. In contrast, the International North-South Transport Corridor is already carrying cargo, and it is in a race against time to cross the finish line first. Now head east to the Chennai-Vladivostok Maritime Corridor. 10,370 kilometers of blue water highway that slashes the distance by nearly 8,000 kilometers and reduces travel or transit time by several days. First proposed in 2019, the Chennai-Vladivostok Maritime Corridor received new lease of life at the just concluded India-Russia summit in New Delhi. Now, India and Russia signed specific MOUs to operationalize regular liner services and insurance mechanisms for the route. For India, this is direct access to Russia's diamond-rich Sakha Republic, timber and LNG. For Russia, it's a warm water lifeline to 1.4 billion Indian consumers. And finally, the crown jewel very few countries can touch, the Northern Sea Route. This is the Arctic shortcut along Russia's northern coast from Murmansk in the west to Vladivostok in the east. It is 40% shorter than the Suez route to Europe, and when combined with the International North-South Transport Corridor and the Chennai-Vladivostok Maritime Corridor, offers India year-round access to Russian Arctic LNG, oil and minerals. India and Russia also signed an unprecedented agreement giving Indian ships priority icebreaker escort and access to Russian Arctic ports. Russia's state-owned atomic energy corporation Rosatom will train Indian crews. So, what does all this mean in plain numbers? Now, India and Russia trade has already crossed $65 billion in 2024-25, powered primarily by energy. The declared target is $100 billion by 2030. Modi has ordered his Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal to remove every remaining bottleneck.
मेरी जो राष्ट्रपति पुतिन से बात हो रही है और जिस प्रकार के पोटेंशियल नजर आ रहे हैं, मुझे नहीं लगता कि हमें 2030 तक इंतजार करना पड़ेगा। ये मैं साफ देख रहा हूं। हम उस लक्ष्य को समय से पहला पूरा करने के संकल्प के साथ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और मेरा विश्वास बढ़ रहा है।
The Prime Minister added that the 2030 Economic Cooperation Program with Russia will make bilateral trade and investment more diversified, balanced and sustainable. Now, while the West tries to isolate Moscow, India is quietly building not one, not two, but three new arteries that no Red Sea crisis, no Malacca blockade and no Arctic winter can choke. This is not nostalgia for the Soviet era. This is cold, hard 21st century realpolitik executed with warmth, precision and unbreakable resolve. Little wonder then that Modi described India's enduring partnership with Russia as a pole star, which is based on mutual respect and deep trust, and which has stood the test of time. The message from New Delhi is crystal clear. In a world of disrupted supply chains, the nation that controls the shortest and safest routes controls the future. India and Russia just drew the new map, and they are already sailing on it. As they say, watch this space. Sudan's long-running conflict has deepened after rebels captured a strategic transport hub in the oil-producing south of the country. The civil war, now in its third year, has already killed tens of thousands and displaced at least 12 million people, a scale of suffering unmatched anywhere else in the world today. Aman Kumar Himanshu reports.
As the civil war enters its third year, Sudan's two warring factions remain locked in a deadly power struggle. The Rapid Support Forces is tightening its grip across the country. After crushing the last resistance in El Fashar, October, and leaving the city's besieged citizens in ruins, the paramilitary force is now driving east. On the 1st of December, its fighters stormed Baba Nusa in West Kordofan, overrunning the Sudanese Army's 22nd Infantry Division, a base that had been surrounded for nearly a year. It is another major blow to the Sudanese Army and another major gain for the RSF. Baba Nusa sits just southeast of Darfur, right on the strategic road that once led straight to Khartoum before the government fled to Port Sudan when the war erupted in April 2023. The town is the Sudan Army's closest gateway from Kordofan into Darfur. Losing it means losing a critical link across north, south and west Kordofan, and it pushes the war deeper into Sudan's heartland. The Sudanese armed forces have denied that the town had been entirely captured, asserting that battles were ongoing. The RSS framed its operation as a response to what it described as a surprise army attack that violated a humanitarian truce. The army countered by accusing the RSF of mounting artillery and drone strikes that continued to destabilize the area. The takeover of Baba Nusa comes just days after Sudan's Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan rejected the US-backed ceasefire proposal and accused Washington, D.C. of bias. Following that rejection, the RSF announced a unilateral ceasefire, which it has continued to accuse the army of violating, even as its own military operations persisted across multiple fronts. Baba Nusa's strategic value is immense. It functions as a crossroads for roads and logistics feeding southern oil fields and markets. It is also described as a gateway to the Darfur region and the whole of Western Sudan. Control of this hub can influence the movement of fuel supplies and humanitarian convoys, creating leverage over regional trade routes. Losing Baba Nusa would make it much more challenging for the Sudanese army to reach ports of Darfur or other parts of Kordofan. Analysts warn that if Baba Nusa falls completely, the political shockwave will be enormous. The city is considered a huge mercantile center, a regional capital, and a major economic win. The renewed clashes test international diplomatic efforts, including those led by the Quad, comprising Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the United States, which have sought to implement a durable truce. Last month, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman asked US President Donald Trump to get involved in the conflict. President Trump said at the time that he will work to help end the war in Sudan.
I'll tell you, His Majesty would like me to do something very powerful having to do with Sudan. It was not on my my charts to be involved in that. I thought it was just something that was crazy and out of control. But I just see how important that is to you and to a lot of your friends in the room. Sudan, and we're going to start working in Sudan. I didn't think that that was one that was going to be so easy to do, but we're going to start working.
Still, it is unclear how specifically the US president plans to personally use his influence. The conflict has been heavily fueled by outside support. There have been calls for the US to increase the pressure on the UAE, which has been widely accused of supplying weapons to the RSF. The UAE denies it. Ongoing diplomatic efforts continue to stall as Sudan's general rejected the latest ceasefire proposal. More than 950 days have passed since the eruption of violence in Sudan in April of 2023. There is no sign it will stop anytime soon. The civil war has displaced 12 million people. 7.7 million of them are internally displaced. 3.3 million have sought refuge in neighboring countries, with Egypt being the primary destination. Humanitarian groups warn that an escalation risks worsening shortages of food, medicine, and fuel, and could spark further displacement of civilians. Aman Kumar Himanshu for DD India.
More than 11 years after Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 vanished without a trace, a new chapter in aviation's greatest mystery is set to begin. Malaysia says that search for the missing Boeing 777 will resume in the Indian Ocean on 30th December. With next-generation underwater robotics, improved seabed analysis and renewed resolve from the Malaysian government to bring closure to grieving families, hopes are rising once again. So will the mystery of the missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 finally be solved? Aman Kumar Himanshu finds out in the next report.
A deep-sea search for the Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 or MH370, which disappeared over a decade ago in one of aviation's greatest mysteries, is set to resume on December 30th. The operation will last 55 days. The new search will focus on an area the experts now believe has the highest chance of containing the wreckage, though details of the exact location have not been given. The hopes of finding the reasons behind the missing flight MH370 have increased because of an aerospace expert, Richard Godfrey's analysis. He has used radio wave technology to track the course of the missing plane and find its last position in water. Now, Malaysia is sending ships and underwater robots into one of the planet's loneliest stretches of ocean in the hope of solving one of aviation's most haunting mysteries. Malaysia is resuming the search for the flight for three key reasons. First, to find out what happened to the plane. Second, what caused its disappearance. And third, to bring closer to the families of those on board the ill-fated Malaysian Airlines flight. The search will be spearheaded by the US-based marine robotics firm Ocean Infinity. The agreement between the Malaysian government and Ocean Infinity is based on a no-find, no-fee contract. It means that if the wreckage is successfully found, the company will receive $70 million as fee. But if it is not found, there will be no payment. The company had already conducted a search operation in April this year, but had to abandon it because of poor weather conditions. The mysterious history of MH370 tragedy begins on 8th March 2014, when the aircraft disappeared shortly after taking off from Kuala Lumpur for Beijing. There were 239 people on board, a majority of them were Chinese citizens. Radar contact with the Boeing 777 was lost sometime after the plane was airborne, making it initially impossible to trace its flight path. But subsequent analysis of satellite database signals indicate that the aircraft deviated from its original route and flew southwards towards the Indian Ocean. The plane was last observed on military radar at 2:14 a.m. on March 8, 2014, flying west over the Strait of Malacca. Initially, it was presumed that the aircraft had come down in the South China Sea between Malaysia and Vietnam, and the search was focused on this area. But a week after the disappearance, the aviation world was stunned to learn that the aircraft had kept flying for at least 7 hours after it was lost from the radar screens. Multiple search operations for the plane have been conducted since then, but all proved fruitless. From 2014 to 2017, Malaysia, Australia and China searched 120,000 square kilometers of seafloor at a cost of $135 million, more than $200 million today. In 2018, Ocean Infinity scanned more than 100,000 additional square kilometers. None of those campaigns found the main wreckage or victims. Only 3 confirmed pieces of a wing have ever been recovered. In July 2018, a 495-page report on the MH370's disappearance concluded that the Boeing 777 likely steered off course through deliberate manual intervention, though investigators could not determine by whom. The report also pointed to errors by Kuala Lumpur and Ho Chi Minh City air traffic controllers and recommended improvements to prevent similar incidents. The inability to locate the MH370 crash site has fueled many conspiracy theories, ranging from mechanical error to remote-controlled crash to more bizarre explanations such as an alien abduction. In recent years, some aviation experts have said that the plane was deliberately taken off course by an experienced pilot. Some experts have alleged that Malaysia has shown little interest in finding the jet. A retired aerospace engineer, Richard Godfrey, claimed that Malaysian authorities may not want to find the wreckage because it would mean that they would have to compensate the families of victims. Another aviation expert, Jeffrey Thomas, believed that the Malaysians want the MH370 incident to be forgotten. The search will now resume in select areas in the southern Indian Ocean, covering 15,000 square kilometers. They were selected based on a drift analysis of aircraft wreckage parts that had washed ashore on the African coast and certain islands in the Indian Ocean. Ocean Infinity is relying on a far more advanced generation of ocean search technology. The company uses largely uncrewed surface vessels that coordinate swarms of autonomous underwater vehicles. These submersible robots can hover tens of meters above the seabed and map the ocean floor at depth of 6,000 meters. They are equipped with multi-beam sonar, sub-bottom profilers, and high-resolution imaging systems. By narrowing down the search area and employing more modern technology, the Malaysian government hopes to gain certainty about the aircraft's whereabouts and uncover the circumstances of the crash. With Aman Kumar Himanshu, Amit Mukherjee for the Voice of Global South.
And with that, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.